once King T started catching and they got the deal at Capitol, that's when, you know, Pooh pulled me in and was like, yo, Pooh and King T was like, yo, want to get on a joint with me? And I'm like, yeah, I ain't have nothing out, you know? So I'm like, yeah, I want to get on. So then that's when me and Tila and Mixed Master Spade, bless the dead, did Just Clowning. That's how that came about.
Well, it's interesting you're saying all this because I did remember when I first heard it, like how you were shouting out DJ Pooh quite a bit in your lyrics. So I was like, so now it makes better sense because I was going to ask you about that. Now, what about, I thought it was great too that Mixed Master Spade's on the song because like King T, Mixed Master Spade doesn't get enough credit or highlighted enough, I think. So for you, since he was obviously way before you, especially on the West Coast, what did you see? What did you learn from Mixed Master Spade?
Man, I'm gonna tell you this, man. As far as rap goes, he was just like, he's one of them dudes. He's one of like, you know, he's one of the vertebrae in this whole backbone of West Coast rap. But man, I learned more off of Mixed Master Spade as being a street dude. Like, he was about that life. I mean, Spade was about that life. He was doing this thing out here in these streets. I mean, even to the point I remember that fool got kidnapped.
Wow.
And I'm talking about for real got kidnapped. So I'm like, that's when I really started to learn, like, okay, like, you know, Spade ain't just like this dude, this happy-go-lucky rap dude, man. Spade is like a real street dude, man. And it used to be real cool to hang out with him, man, because, you know, it was always a fun time. He always had jokes and always flashy, always had jewels on, always had, hey, man, Spade was that dude, you know, not just in the rap game, but he was one of them dudes in the streets too.
So how then, as a kid, probably still in your late teens, and getting into the business for real now, because now you have a song out, now you're getting some notoriety, you're about to sign, if you haven't already, with Atlantic. How did you kind of see in LA the intertwining of the streets and the music industry? What was that like for you? And what did you see of it?
Well, the intertwining of the streets between the business, you know what, it was a little bit different back in that time because LA wasn't the place actually for culture as far as rap is concerned. It was more still of a gangbang mentality, a street culture out here. It wasn't really like you wanted to get put on, you went to New York. It was only a couple of places out here to get put on. I mean, either you was on Techno Hop, which was I believe that was Lonzo's label.
He was on Cut Records, Crew Cut Records.
Yeah, or you was on Macola, which, you know, Macola was like, so it wasn't really like that kind of thing as far as, you know, anything about music and the history of music or, you know, just like the whole business of music, because our whole shift in this game which makes it so unique, as we was talking about earlier, of this, you know, documentary that we hope to put together. It's like we were like the first three cats to leave LA to go to New York and actually make a name for some dudes that was from LA. So it was like the business aspect of this whole thing. I really kind of got all of that info from just being in New York. But the street aspect of it, even though, you know, I'm from New York, but the street aspect of it is more kind of like what I got from here. And the reason why I say that is because you got to even look at LL, Run-DMC, all of them back in the days. Wasn't nobody cursing on their records. Wasn't nobody being real on their records. It was braggadocious. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Look at me. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It was that. It wasn't until, I tell you, it was crazy because I think I was still signed to Def Jam when N.W.A had came out. And they put out Straight Outta Compton on one of them songs that came out. And I remember they used to clown N.W.A. And one of the reasons that they used to clown them, which I couldn't understand, is because they were cursing on the record. And it was like, back in my time, I was like, we didn't know you can do that. Nobody was cursing in their raps. So when they came out and, kicked that real street knowledge, like they, say, it's like, it was a shock. And to me, that's what gave me the inspiration and the permission to actually kind of express yourself a little bit more than just being PG. So it was more of a street lesson for me out here as to strip away all the rules that was presented before us and just be you, your authentic self, and just kick it how you want to kick it.
Okay. So then you get the deal with Atlantic, and as you're getting things moving, how was the early part of that experience different or similar to what was going on with Def Jam?
Well, I mean, it was way different only because we actually was like, I don't want to say priority, but we actually had a little juice to where we were in the studio, working regularly, getting checks, actually knew people at the label and people, we knew people at Def Jam, but people actually that was supportive of you. I mean, not 100% is supportive of you, but as like when you walk in the door, hey, Breeze, what's up? Hey, oh, they go Breeze. And, that was like one of the different parts because we actually had, somebody that was like, really trying. We actually felt that we had a project that was going to come out. But I mean, the same thing still applies as far as being on a label that already has, acts that's already doing well. Because I believe at the time when I was signed, who was on the label with me? Or the D.O.C. was on the label with me. Kwame was on the label. Cool C.
JJ Fad.
No, JJ.
Well, they were on Atco. They were on Atco.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And a couple of other people. And so it was kind of like D.O.C. was kind of like the main guy, kind of. And it was because of the N.W.A. backing and Dr. Dre. And, he had this name, backing behind him and stuff like that. And Kwame also was, he did pretty well too. So, it still was kind of that like, okay, like, yeah, it was the numbers game. Like, okay, Breeze, you doing all right, but D.O.C.'s platinum. And okay, you doing okay, but, blah, 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 and this, that, the third. And, that's when I really got to understand the business side of music. Like, you know what, look, it ain't about just going in the studio and making music. It's about putting up these numbers and, that's what's basically going to move the needle for you.
Yeah, it's a popularity contest.
Of course. They call it likes these days, right?
Yeah. So then how and why did you come up with the Young Son of N.W.A, the Tyson acronym? Like, what was the significance of that for you? And how'd you come up with it?
Well, I mean, I was a boxing fan, at the time. And Mike Tyson was the man in boxing. And also, in the beginning stages of rap, it was kind of like a thing to where like I'll give you a perfect example. DJ Run is actually the son of Curtis Blow. Everybody had like your little homie under you was called the son of. So like DJ Run was Curtis Blow. That's Curtis Blow's son. And on top of that, here's the triple entendre right here, is I had a strained relationship with my father. I originally, when I left to come out here to move with my mother, I didn't like it in California, and I went back to go stay with my father. And after a year of me staying with him, and I ain't gonna lie, I was pretty much a juvenile delinquent. My father ended up sending me back to live with my mother on Father's Day. That was his present to himself. Get out. and he put me out on Father's Day and put me on a plane. And I was like 14 at the time, and I never spoke to him again. And he never called me. He never looked out, nothing. I heard nothing from him. So it was a play on words as to, okay, I ain't the son of no one because no one put me out. I didn't come up under anyone. F my father, because that fool don't even talk to me. So I ain't, well, you can't even claim me as your son. And then on top of that, Tyson was my favorite boxer. So it ended up, I made the acronym as the young son of no one, Tyson. So it kind of all flowed in together. So it was like a 3-part thing now how I came up with that.
Wow. I had no idea, obviously. Now,
yeah.
There's a lot to that. Now, on the Tyson song, I always thought it was ironic, too, that you had like the Muhammad Ali stuff on there instead of Mike Tyson. So why was that?
That was Muff. That was Muffla, man. That was all Muffla's doing, because I don't believe at that time there was I guess we probably could have got some sound bites from Tyson, but that was just Muff's thing, man. That was I'm telling you, Muff, as far as the rapping, obviously I wrote everything. As far as the beats, Muff did pretty much everything. Him, Pooh, Bobcat, as far as producing, as far as that's concerned. But it was always, and it's funny, like it was always a struggle, like between me and Muff, because Muff is West Coast. I'm like East Coast, even though I live on the West Coast. Muff is funk music. Muff funk music is Parliament, George Clinton, Zap, all of that. My funk is James Brown. That's my funk. So it's like, even when we did L.A. Posse, he had to kick me out of the studio to complete that record because I did not like the record whatsoever. When he played the beat, he first just had like a regular beat down on the bottom. He didn't have all of the more bounce samples and all the stuff that was behind it. He didn't have all of that. And so like, I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard him start sampling more bounce and all of this. And I immediately said, don't you put that shit on my record. Do not do that. I do not want that on, like, that's y'all. That's not me. And we're in New York, so I'm like, and I think I used to give Muff so much trouble, like talk so much mess to him. And then finally he was like, he's like, would you just let me do this? And I said, no. He said, okay. He's like, hold on. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out $50. He said, I'm gonna give you $50 to leave the studio and just come back in about 2 or 3 hours. He said, if you come back and you don't like what I've done with the song, we'll scrap it. I said, cool. Number one, I'm $50. Okay, give me the $50. So I ended up leaving and I came back. And when I came back and like the studio was quiet, everybody's looking at me and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, so what we got? And he said, you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And then he hit play. And when it came on, I was like, oh, okay. And that was my transition from that day on. Then I started to understand Zap more balanced. Then I started listening. Then I started getting my real history. So now, like, I love funk music just as much as everybody else now. But it started with him doing L.A. Posse with me. I mean, I liked a few of them, but he really got me into it after that record.
Yeah, and that is amazing, because that song, not only do I love it, but I thought you sounded so good on it, and flowing wise and everything too. And I was always so intrigued. You explained a little bit about the b-boy breakdancing side of it, but I always thought it was amazing that you were dancing so much in the video too. So why, given your dance background, but why was, because you were a dancer, is that why you wanted to dance in the video so much?
Actually, I didn't want to dance in the video. I didn't want to dance in it at all. Not at all. I was like, come on, man. Like, I was kind of like trying to move away from that and just be an MC. But at the same time, when the video dude, when it was time to do the video dude brought 2 girl dancers that was gonna dance with me. So it was kind of like, okay, I can't just stand here, like I'm gonna look stupid if I just stand here. So I better move a little bit. And plus my dancer, Stefan was one of the dudes that kind of made it cool for me to dance a little bit. Like, cause I like, I kind of liked his style. So it was like, okay, so, all right, let's just throw let's throw some of it in there. And so that's how it wasn't planned. It just happened. Once the director gave us the treatment, we figured out what it was. It was like, okay, so you doing this here. Well, what are you going to do? You can't just stand there and act like you on stage, like walking back and forth. Dude, you're in front of a pink hamburger stand. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you going to do? Like, okay, so we got to, okay, well, get your groove on. So, I mean, it just, that was just kind of like spontaneous.
Okay. And then did you know of the Breeze Avenue before the video shoot, or did somebody? Okay, but and is that I think the one I know of, I think, is in Venice. Is that the one you were in? Okay.
Yeah, we was in Venice. We was filming in Venice. That's when we had the LA Kings hockey jersey on. I had the King stuff on, and we was filming down there. And we just happened to be walking, just getting B-roll and stuff like that. And it was like, we just happened to walk by, and I was like, oh, Breeze Avenue, we gotta film here. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing that just kind of happened. We didn't even know.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember seeing that, and I couldn't, as a kid, and I grew up in Maryland, so I didn't know if that was real or whatever. But then later when I moved to LA and then I saw it, I was like, man, I wonder if that's where they were in Venice. So
yeah, I'd love to say they named it after me, but nah, I was there. It was there before I got there.
I would imagine. Now, also on the Young Son of N.W.A, they're steadily trying to flow like, and one of the many amazing things to me about that is that you're like rapping for about 2 minutes straight. So, I always hear the stories of artists having to learn about making songs from producers and different things, but did you guys conceptually go into it like, yo, I'm just going to do this super long verse, like a la Paid in Full style? Or did you how did that concept and execution come about?
Well, I mean, most of the records that we did, it was always organic. It was never like, there was no pre-production. There was no, like, we was at the house and we're making beats and I'm writing raps to it. It was never like that. I mean, every now and then, because obviously the drum machine was at the house, turntables was at the house, Muff would make beats there. But most of the time that we came up with stuff, we just came up with it right there on the spot. Like, he'll play the beat and I'll figure out, okay, well, what goes to this record? My main focus when I was coming up in that time was to be versatile, was to just be well-rounded. I didn't just want to be known for one thing. If you notice back in those days, a lot of MCs, like early MCs, wasn't just one way. I mean, they had songs about parties, you had songs about girls, you had songs about you bragging on you, you had social songs, you did a few different things. And that record right there is, I love jazz music. And we happened to have a jazz saxophone player that was there. And they came up with the beat. And one of my favorite MCs at that time was KRS-One. He was one of my favorite MCs. So as steadily trying to flow like that, his voice is in there. Because he says, under thousands and thousands of very good MCs, a poet will flow like the breeze. So that's where I got the idea to make that song. And for me just going in, it was just, I wasn't done. I just wasn't done. I wasn't confined to 16 bars. It was like, let's just make what we make and I'll stop rapping when I'm done. So that's why I had like kind of a long verse up in there like that, because, it was just, I wasn't done. And then also I kind of looked at that record that's not like gonna be like a kind of record that bumps in the club. It's just for kind of like for MCs. So we don't have to have a great break and a great chorus and just get busy and show people like, I make these party songs, I can make this songs, but I can also just spit on a record too. So that's kind of like where that came from.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV Raps with N.W.A.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.